Welcome back to JavaScript Fundamentals 201. In today's lesson, which is lesson 11, we are going to talk about storage because we've always wanted to store data that persists between the different pages within our website. And we've kind of been able to do that using cookies, but using cookies through JavaScript is rather cumbersome. So it's always nice whenever we get some new ability or some new API to do kind of the same thing to make things a little bit easier. Now, what we are going to talk about today is an object called local storage. It is not supported by Internet Explorer 7, but it is supported by Internet Explorer 8 and, of course, all of the other browsers. And this is not cookies. This is something completely different from cookies that is only accessible through JavaScript. So cookies have a benefit in that the server can access them as well as JavaScript. But this local storage object that we are going to talk about is JavaScript only. And it is designed to hold name and values. So we will have a name that is going to be a key, and then we have a value for that key. And we can set these key value pairs in two different ways. First, we need to specify the local storage object. This is a global object, so it is actually a property of window. So we would do local storage, and then we can just add a property to local storage. So let's do first name, and let's set it a value of John. So in this case, our key is first name, and our value is John. The second way that we can set a key value pair is to use the set item method. This accepts two arguments. The first is the key. In this case, it would be last name. And then the second argument is value, which we are going to set to Do. We can retrieve these values in a similar fashion. We could do local storage dot first name to get the first name. We could also do last name. Even though we set last name using the set item method, we can use it as a property. So let's actually alert this. Let's do alert local storage dot first name, and then we will concatenate that with local storage dot last name. And then whenever we run this within the browser, we will see John Doe within the alert box. There we go. We can also use the get item method, and then we just pass in the key that we want to retrieve, in this case last name. Let's refresh, and we get the same results. Now these keys are case sensitive, so if we try to do first name with a capital A, that is not going to work. We are going to get undefined because this is case sensitive. So do keep that in mind whenever you are setting and getting values from local storage. After you create a key value pair, you might want to remove it later on. And to do that, you have a method called remove item. So we could do local storage dot remove item, and then we just need to specify the key that we want to remove. So in this case, let's remove last name. So that is going to remove the last name key and value pair. So all we will have on the local storage object is first name. So if we try to alert local storage dot last name, we are not going to see the value of Doe that we had before. First name, we are going to get undefined as well, because by calling the clear method, we have cleared all of the name values within the local storage object. So there we go, we are getting undefined for first name. One very important thing about the local storage object is that whenever you create a key value pair, the value gets converted to a string if it's not one already. So I've created a key value pair where the key is age and the value is the number 47. But whenever we retrieve the age property of local storage, we are going to get a string of 47. So I'm going to do type of local storage dot age. That's going to give us a value of string inside of the alert box. And if we want to use this value This comes into play whenever we want to store more complex data, like an object. So I'm going to paste in an object. It's a person object that has first name, last name, and age, just like the first name, last name, and age properties or keys that we specified for local storage. It also has the same values as well, because this person object is more likely to be what we will use within our code. So since we have all of this grouped together within one object, it makes sense to store that one object as opposed to storing the individual properties. So if we try to store this as person, we are going to run into some problems because this actually gets converted to a string, and I'll show you what that looks like. Let's get rid of type of. Let's replace age with person. Let's also get rid of this code on line 9 so that all we are doing is alerting person. This is what we get, object to object. That's not very helpful. And while we had the person object before and we've saved it to the person key of local storage, we don't really have that value anymore within local storage. We just have this string that we can't really do anything with. So this is where JSON can come into play. We can use the JSON object to stringify an object and store it within our local storage. So let's do JSON.stringify, pass in our person object, and then later we can retrieve that object. So let's do person obj equals JSON.parse local storage.person. And then we can use person object as we would with the person object that we created on line 1. So let's do alert person object.first name, and let's concatenate that together with the last name. So person object dot last name, and we will see John Doe within our alert box. So let's actually use local storage in between two different pages so that we will set the values in one page and then we will retrieve them within another. Because after all, that's what local storage is for. So let's first add an index2.html. So index2. And we also need another script file for index2. So let's create a JavaScript file. We'll call this script2. Inside of index2, we need to reference the script2 file. So let's do script. Source is script2.js. And we simply just want to cut and paste some of the code from script.js to script2.js. And that is primarily the code that we use to parse the JSON structure stored in local storage.person and then using that person object. So we do need to clean up some of this code. We do not want to call clear because if we do call clear, then our code in index2 is not going to work. So we want to get rid of that. And lastly, we need to add a link from index.html to index2. So we will do href, we will do index2.html, and let's just give it text of click me. So let's refresh in the browser. And whenever we click on this link, we will get an alert box that says John Doe, because that is exactly what we have written. We have used JSON.parse to parse our person object within local storage, and then use that object as if it were any other object. One final thing about the local storage object is that it is restricted to your domain. So code from another domain cannot access the data that you set for local storage, and you cannot access data that is set for another domain in local storage. So do keep that in mind. This is restricted to your domain. And that basically sums up local storage. It is a nice way to share data in between different pages that are on your website.